Hi, my name is March, and I love programming. And in programming circles, you often have these events called hackathons, where a bunch of people get together and divide into groups to create programs based off of a prompt. The prompt can be anything, like poker, Scrabble, rock, paper, scissors, and at the end of the event, whichever group makes the best program wins the event. But that's boring. I mean, who wants to watch a bunch of nerds compare their metaphorical dick sizes? I'm sure to some of you, watching people write the most efficient and effective code possible sounds as boring as watching paint dry for 10 hours. Which is why 3 months ago, I decided to start writing rules for a new kind of competition. Something that would be the exact opposite of a hackathon. One in which I competed against my friend to write the worst code possible for 5 different prompts. Now, to an outsider, that might sound very flimsy. Worst code possible, wouldn't that just be code that doesn't run? That's exactly why I wrote some pretty detailed rules, which is what we will go over in the next segment of the video.
6-7.
The rules define 3 types of persons: the prompter, the judge, and the players. The prompter is the one who gathers the prompts. Players are the ones who write the code, and the judge is the one who determines who did the prompt worst. The prompter and the judge might be the same person, but neither... Dude,
Come on in, Mr.
get off your
President.
phone. Okay, fine. I'll try to keep the rules as concise as I can. The rules define 3 types of persons: the prompter, the players, and the judge. The prompter writes 5 prompts with descriptions and hands that over to the players. The players for each prompt have 30 minutes to write shitty code. Once the codes are finished, the codes are handed over to the judge. The judge then determines who performed worse on what prompt, and whoever performed worse on most prompts wins the competition. You can pause and read the details of the rules right here if you want, but I'll try to make sure that everything that I've just told you is enough for the rest of the video. And with the rules out of the way, I can finally talk about how the competition itself went.
But fuck was that?
Starting from this point onwards, it might be a little tricky to understand everything that I'm saying if you're not a programmer, but I'll try my best to still make this segment of the video as entertaining as I can, as this is the main meat of the story. Prompt 1. 6-7. It is at this point in the competition that I realized this whole thing was a mistake. For this prompt, we had to make a program that accepted user input. If you put in 6, it would return 7, and if you input 7, it would return 6. However, there was one restriction. Wait. There were 2 restrictions. We were not allowed to use if and switch conditions to check whether or not the input value was equal to 6 or 7. Now, if you know anything about programming, you'll think that that's a major handicap. However, you've got to remember, it's only a handicap if you're trying to write the most efficient code possible. When you're trying to do the exact opposite, it's kind of helpful, if anything. So... anywho, the moment I saw the prompt, I got to writing some absolute bullshit. My wonderful code begins by importing 3 modules, which are never used in the code. This is effectively coding pollution. It is followed by 2 global variables that have absolutely no reason to exist. One converts integers to numbers, and the other converts numbers to integers. Then, that is followed by 2 functions, which have virtually no reason to exist as well, and they also take up far more space than they should. Honestly, if I explained everything in detail, we would be here for hours, so I will try to be a little more concise. Here is a use of a while loop where a for loop would have been far more logical, a completely unnecessary use of the useless dictionary from before, and to top it all off, whatever the fuck this is. I don't even know where to start. So the a variable here is the input value. It is what the user put into the program. This number then is ran through a dictionary that turns it into a word so that it can be compared to another number that is also ran through that dictionary. Now you might be asking, March, weren't you not allowed to use if in combination with the equal operator to compare the input value with 6 and 7? Well, yes, but that's not what I'm doing. The rules specifically stated that I couldn't compare the input value to the numbers 6 and 7. It said nothing about comparing the input value with the words 6 and 7. So as diabolical as that contraption is, it actually serves a purpose, and it is enough to get my blood pressure really high. Sheriff's approach to this whole thing was a lot simpler. He first wrote the code that was actually functional and then went over it to make it worse. One of the rules states that you cannot copy something from another window, and because of this, he spent a lot of his time this round copying ASCII art from the internet character by character. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough time to copy the entire ASCII art, but even if he was able to do that, why? I genuinely can't tell exactly what this line of code is supposed to be doing because of how atrociously it is written, so good job on that, I suppose. But that was not enough to weigh the opinion of the judges, and they gave me my first point here. Prompt 2. Window sort. For this prompt, we had to make a program that accepted a bunch of numbers and sorted them alphabetically. You would think this would be easy peasy, we have 30 minutes after all, but no, this prompt really crushed our dreams. Let's review Sheriff's code first. I know I criticized him in the last prompt, but this one takes the cake. This might genuinely be the worst code ever written by a human. Most of the judging process was spent trying to understand what any of the code did, and even with Sheriff right there, we couldn't figure it out. I would love to explain what's wrong with this code, but I can't because it's literally everything. Evaluation functions within evaluation functions. Many 1D lists where a 2D list would have done a wonderful job reducing the unnecessary evaluation functions. It is overall just a beautiful disaster, which is why it's such a shame that it went to waste. Because of the convoluted nature of the code, Sheriff did not have enough time to actually properly debug it, and the code ended up being dysfunctional. So it was eliminated on the basis of Rule 1. It did not fulfill the prompt's purpose. So naturally, I got the point, right? Oh, you sweet summer child. I spent most of the prompt's time staring at the wall, trying to figure out how I would do the prompt in the first place. And at the very end, I resorted to the dirtiest trick I possibly could have. I used the built-in sort function. I know, it's not my proudest moment, and it seems like a clear violation of the rules, but it isn't. You can go back and check the screenshot I took of the rules earlier on in this video. I didn't break a single one. Unfortunately though, despite the fact that I broke no rules, I am a massive yapper, and back when I was writing the rules of the game, I would yap quite a lot to Sheriff, trying to explain the rules I was planning to implement. And one of the things that I had said was that using the sort function, if the prompt was a sorting algorithm, would be completely unacceptable. So the judges called my act into question. They said that I misled Sheriff all that time ago. And, well, you might say, yeah, you did mislead Sheriff, but I've got an argument against that. If you go back to that message and look at the context of it, you will see that I was talking about a rule that I did end up implementing in the earlier version of the rule set. The rule wasn't there to prevent any and all cheap shortcuts, only the import of modules. What I said back then about the sort function was under the false pretense that you had to import the sort function. But guess what? You don't have to import the sort function. It's a built-in method into Python. There was never anything in the rule set of the game that prevented you from using the sort function if the prompt is a sorting algorithm. And I said that I think it was a little silly to use a message that never made it into the rule set as proof that I wasn't allowed to do something in the actual competition. Thankfully, I got the judges to agree with me, but they were also very hesitant. So instead of giving me a full point, they gave me half a point, which is something that they kind of made up, but I was gonna take anything at that point. Prompt 3. The printer. For this prompt, we had to make a program that would print a house either through the console, through a literal printer, or a 3D printer, because W1K definitely has a 3D printer. If you guys ever need anything 3D printed, reach out to W1K because they definitely have a 3D printer. At this point in the competition, I was beginning to feel a little bored, so I decided to mix things up a bit, and I created a game here. The game begins with our protagonist, Jeff, who, due to unfortunate circumstances, is unfortunately homeless. The economy is tough. It is totally understandable, Jeff. Your goal as the player is to build a house for Jeff by copying layers of ASCII art of the house, character by character. But of course, that's not where things end. The code itself is absolutely miserable, and the theme for this misery was recursion. The file starts by setting a few variables to avoid recursion later on, and then never uses them. For non-programmers, one of the biggest problems here is the fact that if you want to change even a single character in the entire house ASCII art here, you're gonna need to change that character in 4 different places. If this code was written properly, you would only need to change 1. And the only problem here is not the use of all the constant strings. It is also the fact that this code just repeats all the time. The program is written in 80 lines, but it could easily be written in under 50. Sheriff took a different approach and made a program that literally prints a house on literal paper. And he also added an Easter egg where if you ask the program to print 6-7 houses, it tries to erase your system32. And that's it. That's all he did. Don't ask me what he did for the remaining 25 minutes of his prompt because I don't know. So naturally he won. He won this one. This somehow beat out this, and I'm still very pissy about that. Now, when the judges made this decision, I did not speak up because of the shit that happened in prompt 2. There was already enough drama spewing there, and I did not want to upset them even more because that's how you get the judges against you. So I stayed quiet, and I let this one pass, but I'm very pissy about this. I mean, the only thing wrong with Sheriff's code was the fact that it doesn't actually delete your system32, but I feel like that's just common courtesy. Whatever. It's not like I care about this point or anything. That makes the score 1.5 over 1. Prompt 4. It's just a prank, bro. For this prompt, we had to make a fake virus that was silly and funny, and naturally, I settled on sending a 20 petabyte zip bomb to W1K's computer, which combusted their computer live on the Discord call in front of all the other judges. Since Sheriff's code could no longer be run on their computer, since it was completely totaled, I automatically won this round, and hence the competition. Is what I would be saying, but unfortunately, there was one restriction. We were not allowed to damage W1K's computer. I settled on a program that asks for your Roblox username and tells you that it will give you free Robux in exchange. When you input a username, it throws up a very poorly coded loading bar which does absolutely nothing except waste your time. Once the loading screen is finished, it creates a file on your computer, which then is thrown up on your screen 3 times. The file reads, "This is a Bosnian virus. Due to the poor technology in my country, I'm unable to break your computer. Please grab a brick and throw it at your computer." The program then throws up a bunch of green numbers on your console that also mean absolutely nothing. The program then attempts to throw up that message from earlier 100 times, but due to a typo, it fails. It is 200 lines of perfection. Sheriff decided to go a different route. And by a different route, I mean he just wrote a cute and silly fake virus. And didn't make it bad again. It's what you're seeing behind me right now. Like, it's cute. Here's the code for it. It's great. It's silly and a wonderful idea overall. But this is not the point of the competition. I genuinely think that Sheriff might have just forgotten what he was supposed to be doing halfway through this competition because what are we doing? And the judges were considering giving him a point here, but this time I decided to speak up. There is not a single line of code in Sheriff's code here that is bad. So here, yeah, I got the judges to give me the point. And as much as I would have loved for prompt 5 to be the tiebreaker, I won here. I have 2.5 points, and he had only 1, so there was no way he could beat me. So yeah, life is often disappointing. We don't always get cool tiebreakers at the end. Since the result of the 5th prompt does not really matter, I'll try to go over it super duper quickly. Prompt 5. Cricket 1033. For this one, the prompter decided to give us a full hour instead of 30 minutes, and this was unlike any of the other prompts. This was basically a poorly put together ARG, and the reason I say poorly put together is because the first step literally didn't work. The prompter had to pitch in and be like, "Oh, my bad. We fucked up encoding the message. Here is the link you were supposed to find. We had to jump through hoops, decoding all kinds of funky messages to find the next link in the chain, and it was fairly easy. The only hard part here was the fact that we had to write in code form how we were decoding these things. Final link in this prompt was an unlisted video on YouTube made by the prompter, which gave us our final command in this competition.
Where's the heckin' drum roll? Alright, fellas. Here it goes. The last task is... There it is on screen,
Oh my god, it's over.
I think. Again, I have no clue what it is, but God have mercy on you. Truly awful. I can't believe they do something like this to you. Oh well, tough luck.
It was devastating. Now, I am ashamed to admit that I was so fatigued by this time in the competition that I actually didn't write anything bad here. I just printed hello world. Basically, I was so fatigued that I did what Sheriff had been doing for the previous 2 prompts. And Sheriff actually logged in for this prompt and he wrote this absolute abomination, which won him this particular prompt. But it doesn't matter because I got 2.5 and he got 2, and thankfully I won.
Yeah, I'm gonna give March the 7 and Sheriff the 6.
That was I've been recording for 2 hours. I feel like I went from 60 subs to 600 subs almost overnight, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to all my new fans, and I want to welcome you guys into the community. How much support you guys have been showing me has given me a completely renewed hope for this whole thing. With that said though, I suggested a schedule in my intermission video, which is a little too ridiculous. I cannot possibly post 18 videos a year, so I will try to stick to 1 video per month, and I really hope that I can meet that for this year. The next video will be the 100 subscriber special, which for those of you who are new is going to be a chess bot, which is going to be super cool. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing and maybe joining my Discord server down below. And I'll see you in the next video where I will make a chess bot that gives you back massages.